putting it all together, the balance of singing. I hope that you've learned a lot from this course, and I know that all this information can be pretty overwhelming. I also know that trying to put it all together can feel kind of impossible, like you're trying to do 50 things at once. And that's absolutely true. Singing is very much about balance, about balancing good breath support, an appropriate amount of breath pressure with a nice relaxed dead zone, with a lifted soft palate and appropriate articulation, and not to even mention artistry. So there's obviously a lot going on here, and I completely understand, and sometimes myself have even felt that it's just too much to juggle. But if you take a step back, work on your particular habits for your body parts, and then think about the whole instrument, you can start to see major changes in your sound and really feel like you are in control and improving your singing all the time. General tips for putting it together. As you start to gain vocal skills, here are a few tips that you can use to help you to incorporate them into your singing. Continue to focus on specific vocal habits one by one, working on them with a really concentrated therapy-like approach for 3 weeks at a time or until they're feeling really ingrained. At that point, the hope is that they will become automatic and you will no longer have to focus on them so much when you're singing, and that will help you to not feel like you're thinking about so many things at once. Remember that we are seeking progress, not perfection. You will never have a perfect performance. Nobody ever has had a perfect performance, and perfection is not the goal of music or art. The sooner that you accept that and become comfortable with that, the more fun you're going to have on this journey. Make sure not to overcorrect. There are certain problems that beginning singers have, and then a completely different set of problems that trained singers have. Trained singers tend to have problems that result in going too far on the pendulum. So for example, in breathing, a lot of singers with training will take too large of a breath, resulting in stacking tension in the chest and affecting their dead zone. Whereas an untrained singer probably isn't going to take enough breath in. So make sure that as you learn these skills, you're not swinging completely too far in the opposite direction, resulting in an imbalance in your technique. Always remember that it's hard to make it easy. Whenever you're singing, you should be aiming for balance, ease, and freedom. So as you're practicing any of these, if they don't feel that way, take a step back and figure out what is throwing you off. Whole instrument exercises for singing. I've already mentioned a lot of my favorite whole exercises for singing in this course. For example, that multi-step process for talk singing, where you sing on a single vowel or on a long tracked exercise through a melody, isolate the words in the pitch range and then put it all back together. That's amazing for balance because you can address breath support, soft palate, dead zone tension. You can do all of the things with that exercise. Meditative or floor singing is also amazing for full body balanced singing, allowing you to address multiple skills at one time to put all of your knowledge together. One exercise that I've talked about a little bit here and there is making it look easy. Looking in the mirror or recording yourself, make sure that it always looks like you are not working in your neck, not working in your face. You shouldn't be scrunching up your forehead. If you focus on the way that you want to look, sometimes you can kind of reverse engineer the singing process and make it effortless for yourself. Here's one new exercise that addresses whole body singing: playing your instrument. Ultimately, the voice is an instrument. And if you think about it like an instrument, sometimes it can help you to coordinate all of those processes to get a beautiful, easy, free sound. One of my favorite instruments to use for this exercise is a bowed instrument like a violin. If any of you actually play, please don't make fun of my fake fingering here. I know it's not great, but it gets the job done. So go ahead to do this and grab a fake violin or a cello if you prefer something stand up and bow as you sing. That motion will mimic the motion of breath support. That tension that you get from the breath pressure, coordinating with your vocal folds, will help you to coordinate breaths as well, because you can lift your bow as you take a breath and then come back in. Thinking about it that way can be really helpful. You can also use another instrument if you prefer. Another one that I often use is the clarinet. Clarinet kind of sounds a lot like voice. So thinking about that sound and the shape of the musical line that a clarinet makes can help you to find an adequate balance in your sound. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Sometimes making changes to your technique by implementing the advice in this course can kind of derail things. A lot of singers have created their own balance for themselves between the body parts that isn't optimal, but that works pretty well for them. And when you start pulling out pins and messing with parts of your technique, it can kind of destabilize the whole thing, resulting in sounding kind of weird or not being able to do certain things temporarily while you're learning. That's totally normal and part of making progress, but if you are a working singer or somebody who performs regularly, that is obviously problematic. So while you are making large-scale technique changes, do what you need to do to feel confident in your performances while slowly tweaking things until they click into place. Basically, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So if that happens to you, you can try to reverse engineer the whole thing. Go back to the way that you know and that your body knows and that feels familiar to do something. Sing it that way and try to figure out what it is you're doing that allows you to do what you usually do. Then, once you've done that, slowly tweak whatever it is that you're working on while not changing it so much that you can't still execute the move. Here's a good example of this. I recently had a student who was working on not pushing the larynx down when hitting low notes. And as a result, she lost a lot of resonance and power in her lower register because she was trying so hard not to push down. She was sort of overcompensating and changing too many things. I had her revert back to the original way that she was doing things, which actually had already changed significantly because she'd been working so much on kinesthetic awareness of her larynx. She had stopped pushing down nearly as much as she used to, but she was able to find that chest dominant resonant low sound and then slowly change the slightly too low position of the larynx while not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You can do the same thing to avoid losing skills while you slowly make large-scale technical changes that will eventually lead to a much more efficient and free and flexible sound. Performing while making technique changes. I think one of the hardest things about changing your technique is making tweaks and rebuilding your technique while also continuing to perform. Performing when you're feeling that sense of unbalanced, oh, I don't really know my own instrument anymore, can be really challenging. So here are a couple of tips to help you to continue to enjoy performing while you are also making changes to your technique. First of all, approaching your vocal habits on an anatomical basis and doing them every day like they are physical therapy exercises can go a long way to helping you to perform well, because within a relatively short period, 3 weeks or so, you should have that ingrained and you're not going to have to think about it so much while you are performing. If you're performing before a habit is ingrained, don't worry about it. Just set it aside and enjoy your technique and your performance right now. Don't let trying to master lifting your soft palate ruin your experience of performing. You're going to get that soon enough. When you're performing, it's best to not become overly fixated on technique and to think instead about how much you love performing, the material that you're performing, and what you're trying to convey with it. Singing ultimately is a form of communication because most of the time we are singing words. We have something to say. So put all that technique work aside. Trust that the changes that you are working so hard to implement are starting to affect things, and focus instead on your audience, on enjoying your performance, and just having a great time. It's important to remember that the point of this course, of all of this crazy technique work that we've been doing, is so that you can achieve freedom and ease and true joy on stage. The whole is more than the sum. Okay, so here's the thing. You can go through this entire course and dissect all the body parts and learn how to control them and feel them and still not be able to sing very well. And that's because singing, all the body parts that form the human instrument, are more than the sum of their parts. When they work together, there is a certain amount that occurs that science still doesn't understand. And the balance and connection between those parts working together is really what makes a great singer. That being said, the reason I believe in this system is because if you do break down all of those parts and gain an understanding and a better kinesthetic awareness and control of them, putting that balance together becomes insurmountably easier. The vast majority of problems that singers have, and I'm talking both beginners and professional singers, have to do with the body parts that we've gone over in this course. So you might want to do some work on balance and coordination with an actual teacher in person or via video instruction. You can work with me, you can work with somebody else, but gaining control of all of these body parts, the way that it's laid out in the 5-minute singer, will give you such an enormous advantage when you go to work on that balance that it's really hard to exaggerate. So do keep in mind that there is a little bit of extra work and still a little bit of mystery, of magic that goes into singing that isn't covered in this course, but completing control of all of these body parts will take you much farther along that road to an efficient and healthy and free and joyful singing experience. So practice hard and then get out there and have a blast and enjoy all the progress that you've made through the 5-minute singer.